In this example, we're going to be looking at the function y equals x cubed minus 3x squared plus 5. And we're going to be taking just a snapshot of this function, and we're only going to be looking at it on the interval from -1 to +3. And the question's asking us to approximate any local maximum or local minimum values. From our graph, it looks like these occur at whole numbers. We'll talk about how to use the calculator once we finish this question. So let's go ahead and mark our local max and our local min values on the graph. So our local max occurs at the point 0.5. And let's go ahead and just leave these as coordinates. And then our local minimum is going to occur at the bottom part of this curve, which is going to be at the point 2,1. And we'll state that one as coordinates as well. The second part of our question is going to ask us to determine where the function is increasing and where it's decreasing. Keep in mind that when we're working with increasing and decreasing portions, increasing is where our graph is going uphill as we look at it from left to right. Decreasing is where it's going downhill as we look at it from left to right. And for both of these, we want to go ahead and use interval notation. Remember that when you're doing this, you're going to be looking at the x values over which this occurs. So let's go ahead and mark our graph first. So we want to know where our graph is increasing. So it's going uphill on this section of our graph. So let's go ahead and mark this one with increasing. It hits this local max, and then it decreases all the way until it gets to our local minimum. So this is a decreasing portion. And then once it hits that local minimum, it's going to turn around and it's going to start increasing again. So let's go ahead and do the increasing intervals first. Keep in mind we want the x values over which this occurs, and we were restricted to this segment from -1 to 3 with our graph. So our smallest x value for the increasing portion is going to be the -1. Our largest x value is where our local max occurs, which is at an x value of 0. And we'll go ahead and use open intervals here, so parentheses around each of those. And then when we take a look at our second portion where it's increasing, our smallest x value for that segment, if we look at our local minimum, this has an x value of 2. And our largest x value for that segment is going to be at an x value of 3. And you can go ahead and put your union symbol between those two. For the interval where our graph is decreasing, right, it's going to be from our local max all the way to our local minimum. So our smallest x value is a 0. And our largest x value for that segment is going to be a +2. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this same question, but let's go ahead and talk about how we would use our graphing calculator to help us get the local max or the local min in case they don't come out to be nice whole numbers. let's go ahead and take a look at our graphing calculator. And the first thing we want to do is type in our function. So let's go to our y equals button. And we want to type in the function x cubed. For the x value, you're going to be using the button that says xt theta n. And we can use our caret, type in x cubed. And you might have to right arrow, pay attention to your cursor so that it comes back down. We have minus 3x squared. Plus 5. Once you have your function typed in, you can go ahead and hit the graph button. You should see an image of the graph appear on your calculator. Now, I want to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit on my graph, so I'm going to go ahead and change the window on my calculator. So you can go up to the window button on top, and you'll notice that on your screen it's going to say xmin, xmax, and then xscale. So this is telling you how far left and right you want the window to be. And keep in mind, we were restricted from x values of -1 to +3 on our interval from our original question. So I'm going to go ahead and make my window just a little bit bigger. I'm going to go -2 as my xmin and a +4 as my xmax. The x scale is what you're counting by to get from -2 to +4, so it's okay that we're counting by ones in this case. Let's adjust our y scale as well. If you remember from the question when we were taking a look at it, this sat kind of above our x-axis, so you can go back and take a look at the graph on the other page if you need to. But I'm going to adjust the minimum y value to be a 0, and the max y value to be a +6. So this will be how far up and down we're looking on our graph. And the y scale, we're going to leave it as a +1 because it's pretty easy for us to count from 0 to 6 counting by ones. Once you have your window adjusted, you can go ahead and hit graph. And now you should see kind of a zoomed in version of the image. Now we want to go ahead and calculate the max and the min of our graph. So in order to do that, we're going to be using the calc feature, which you're going to see in blue above the trace button. So in order to get anything in blue function-wise, we have to hit our second button first. And then I'm going to hit the trace button on top. You'll notice that it says calc right above it. And we're going to be using this screen to determine both the max and the min. So let's go ahead and do the maximum first. So I'm going to pick option number 4. And you're going to notice a cursor on your screen. And since we want to do the local max first, you're going to see kind of towards the bottom part of your screen here, it asks you for the left bound. So we're going to use the left and right arrows on our keypad to move that cursor. And I want to move this cursor to the left of my maximum value. Doesn't matter where on the left-hand side, I just need it to be somewhere on the left-hand side of that max value. Once it's there, I can go ahead and hit enter. And you're going to notice that little blue arrow appear. That means it went ahead and set the left bound for you. The question now towards the bottom says right bound. So we want to go ahead and set the right bound of our graph. So I'm going to use the right arrow and keypad over until it's on the right-hand side of that max value. Again, doesn't matter where, I just need to be somewhere on the right-hand side of it. Now I can go ahead and hit enter. You'll notice that it put the right bound up there for you. And now you'll notice that your question changed to guess. So you can hit enter one more time, and it's going to go ahead and give you the coordinates for that point. Now this is a really good example, question-wise. You'll see that your y value here is a +5. Your x value is actually written in scientific notation. So keep in mind that that e to the -7 is the same thing as some scientific notation. It's pretty much an x value there of 0. Your calculator might actually say 0 on your screen. So as coordinates, right, this would be the point 0, 5. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for our minimum value. Remember, we're going to go back and use the calc feature. So I need to hit my second button and then the trace button. And this time we're going to select option number 3 to find the minimum. And you're going to see the questions appear. It's going to be that same series of questions. It's going to ask us for a left bound, a right bound, and then our guess. So I'm going to use my keypad and arrow over so that somewhere I'm on the left side of that minimum value. Again, doesn't matter where. I just need to be on the left side of the minimum, so I can hit enter. It'll set my left bound for me. My question changes to right bound, so I can scoot my cursor somewhere to the right side of that minimum value. As soon as I'm past it, I can hit enter. You'll see that it sets the right bound. And your question changes to guess. You can hit enter one more time, and it's going to give you some coordinates here. So your x value is going to be a positive 2. Your y value would be a positive 1. And that should match up with the answers that we had on the earlier portion of the question.